as hard work as it was, we were constantly surrounded by beautiful surroundings. So it was, it was difficult to get grumpy.
Welcome to the Budget-Minded Traveler podcast, your source for the everyday inspiration and practical tips that make international travel accessible to everyone. All right, we're back for another episode in this series about alternative forms of transportation in travel. And this one is sure to throw you for a loop. We are about to sit down with a guy named Mike Sewell, who actually ran like with his own 2 feet, the entire length of the Carretera Austral in Chilean Patagonia, which, if you recall, is the exact same route that I just did by car. Mike first contacted me in the months leading up to his big Patagonia running expedition. And then we figured out that we'd be on the same route at the same time. So we actually got to meet up in person twice, once in the middle of nowhere during the road trip / run, and once after the fact when we had both finished. And that's when we actually recorded this episode. So you'll notice that it sounds a little different than normal. That's because we weren't on a Skype call in quiet rooms using microphones somewhere across the world from each other. We were sitting together in a cafe in Puerto Natales, Chile, drinking coffee and chatting about his experience. So please just bear with me if you hear background noise. That's just the way that it goes when you have a mobile office. Also, you'll hear that in the episode, which we recorded this back in January of 2018, Mike didn't quite want to say yet what his next running expedition project would be. But not only is the word officially out, he's actually doing it right now. So if you want a link to follow his current expedition, check out the show notes page at thebudgetmindedtraveler.com/92. And you'll find it there along with, of course, everything else that we mentioned today. So before I transport you and myself back to that cafe in Patagonia with Mike, let's first hear from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by biketours.com, a company passionate about cycle touring that makes choosing and booking a European bike tour incredibly simple. They offer over 200 bike tours, both guided and self-guided, across 40 countries in Europe with packages starting at just $700 a week, all ages and abilities welcome. They map the route, book the hotels, and provide you with bike rental equipment, so all you have to do is say yes and show up for your adventure. Check out biketours.com to view tours or go to travelingjackie.com/bike tours to learn more about my personal experiences cycling with them. We're so grateful to Osprey Packs for partnering with us and supporting the podcast, so please stay tuned for more about them later on. I have an opportunity for you to join me in real life for some real travel. Here's the latest Jump Adventures update. We are going to Greece for a bike and boat island hopping adventure this May 9th to 16th, 2025, and we still have space left. Check out jumpadventures.com to learn more and book now. We're going to have a yacht all to ourselves with ensuite cabins on board, so you get to sleep in the same bed every night as we start in Athens and make our way west toward the island of Corfu. You'll have your own bike for the week, e-bike if you want one, for cycling the islands as we go, in between meals crafted by our private chef on board, and all the relaxing you want to do on the top deck under the Mediterranean sun. These bike and boat adventures are our most carefree and relaxed trips. All you have to do is say yes and show up, and there's still space. Head over to jumpadventures.com to grab your spot now, and we'll see you there. So I am here in Patagonia with Mike Sewell, who I met, you first contacted me on Facebook months ago. What? And I remember what you said. You said, what are the chances you're going to be in Patagonia in November or something? And I just remember writing back 100% because I already knew that I was going to be here.
Yeah, I think I'd seen that you traveled here before, or you had knowledge of the area.
Yeah.
And so, I think the first thought was to get knowledge, and then then I saw that we were going to be in Patagonia at the same time. So I thought it would be good to meet you.
Yeah. So here we are in person, which is pretty cool because we've actually already met once in person because we both just did the Carretera Austral, which is the only road that goes through Chilean Patagonia
that essentially connects northern Patagonia with southern, although it doesn't quite go through if you have a car.
Yeah.
But tell everybody how you did it, because we did it quite differently. Actually, wait, let's back up real quick. Mike, where are you from?
So I'm from South Africa.
South Africa.
Yeah.
And you're a runner.
Yes. So I've run all my life, basically. My dad got me into it from junior school even.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, over the years, the distances have progressed. So, from 5K, 10K to half marathon, full marathon. And then, as I mentioned earlier, my first ultra marathon, which happened to be off-road as well, was in Lake Tahoe.
Yeah, my home.
2008, yeah. So, and for sure that sparked an adventure side to running as well, because running can take you places like it did then. And so I've been to some amazing places since. I've been to the Sahara, where I did a 7-day race, to the European Alps 4-day race. It takes you to some awesome places. And even in South Africa, there's some amazing races where you get off the roads. Mm-hmm. And that's, for me, that's more special. I don't do as much of it as I'd like. South Africa, the road running scene is very big, but the trail is booming at the moment. The trail running scene is booming. So, yeah.
I love it. I'm in love with trail running. It's one of my absolute favorite things to do, and especially as a traveler, because especially as a nomadic traveler with a carry-on bag, because I can't bring my soccer cleats with me everywhere, and a soccer ball, but I can always run. Yeah. And so it's one of the things that kind of keeps me going and really grounds me. But it's such a fun way to see a place.
Exactly, yeah.
And when you told me that you were going to be running, actually my first thought when you said you were going to be running was, how can I be involved in this? Really, that was the first thing that I thought was, I want to do that, even though I also half think that you're crazy. How far was it? There ended up being 2 of us. Yeah.
Originally, I hadn't found anyone to join me because it requires time and a bit of money, and also requires the mindset that you're going to run 1,200 kilometers.
1,200 kilometers.
I think it's about 750 miles.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Just a little bit.
Yeah. So.
But what did make you want to run it? And how did you even find out about this area? Because Patagonia in general, there's still so much that is not known.
Yeah.
But the Carretera Austral, it's very... I don't know very many people. I think I know one person who's ever done it ahead of me, and so it's even less known than, I guess, the rest of Patagonia. So how did that happen for you?
So I guess taking a few steps back, Patagonia as a destination, just the region, had been on my list for quite some time. And originally, I was just looking to come do some hiking. And that kind of evolved into wanting to do a running expedition. Mm-hmm. And I made contact actually with a South African expat who lives in Puerto Montt.
Uh-huh.
And I just found him, I think on YouTube, I found one of his videos or something. And I said to him, I've changed from a trekking holiday to a running expedition. Can you recommend a route, point A to point B, somewhere in Patagonia? Mm-hmm. And he sent me 3 or 4 options, and one of them was the Carretera Austral.
What were the other ones? I'm curious. Do you remember?
I've still got the email, but I'll have to dig them out. Yeah, because when I looked up the Carretera Austral and Googled it, it was perfect.
So you wanted a big one.
Yeah, I think I said to him, I'm looking for something that's roughly 1,000 kilometers.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because to do an expedition, to fly somewhere in the world, you don't want to do it for a week, even 2. You really want to make it an expedition.
Yeah.
At least this is how I felt. So it was like, I'm looking for something that's, around 1,000 kilometers. Mm-hmm. And it literally just ticked all the boxes. So
2 questions. I want to know what are all those boxes for you? What were you looking for? And two, what do you consider an expedition? Like, what is that in your mind? What were you looking for? Maybe those can be answered together.
Yeah. So an expedition, I think, is actually quite a strong word. It's more like an exploratory, pioneer. I think the true definition leans towards that. Mm-hmm. But for me, it was a multi-week project where you are doing something out of the ordinary. You are being pushed to certain limits, physically and mentally, potentially. Mentally as a result of the physicalness.
Right.
And doing it somewhere unusual, somewhere not common, somewhere that piques people's interest, that makes them go, where is that? Never heard of it. Pate where? So, it's like, I love where I'm from, South Africa, and our two biggest cities are Johannesburg and Cape Town. And it's also 1,200 kilometers. So it would be naturally perfect to run between those two cities. But it's on my doorstep. I will do it one day.
Yeah.
But it didn't have that appeal that, say, Patagonia did.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so that's one of the boxes, was to do it somewhere, I guess, kind of exotic, adventurous. And then the Carretera Austral, the more I read about it, the more blogs I saw, videos, it just got the essence of the wildness.
Yeah. Oh, that's
was
Patagonia.
More and more and more. And I intentionally managed my expectations before arriving, because I was worried all this input I was getting was just so brilliant.
Yeah.
That I was worried I was going to arrive and I was going to have built it. I'd built my expectations, but it just lived up to everything and more. You did the same route as me. Yeah. I think the best thing about what we did was running it. It's the slowest way of traveling other than, say, walking it. Mm-hmm. And you just get to take in so much. It was incredible. Every day, even if it was pouring with rain, it was, apart from the misery that came from being wet and cold, it was still, you'd come around a corner and there'd still be this mountain that you could see through the rain, the snow caps, and the other side of a river. It was fantastic. It was brilliant.
Yeah, the landscape. Oh my gosh, I shake my head, and I wonder where we can go from here, because it's so beautiful. What do you do after Patagonia? Yeah. And especially that route. It's so amazing. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's so incredible. And it keeps getting better as you go. And how can it keep getting better? Yeah. It's amazing.
I think what makes it so incredible as well is how quiet it is.
Yeah.
Because there are other as beautiful places in the world, but they've got a massive tourist office, and they've got just tours and tours going through. So Carretera Austral certainly is wild. And again, as you said, the further south you go, that last from Cochrane south is fantastic. It's my favorite section. Mm-hmm. There's literally one road. It's the least traveled part.
Right, because it's the end.
Yeah. And the weather was the moodiest. The terrain was just incredibly wild. Yeah. So it was special. It was truly, truly special. Yeah.
So you did this expedition self-supported, which is a little hard to wrap your head around because you're running it.
Yeah.
So tell us about what that looks like and what that meant for you, what you needed to do to make that happen.
So before I get into that, you asked about the boxes earlier. So yeah, I answered some of them, but the self-supportedness would be something that would add weight to a project, turning it into an expedition of sorts, I would say. Uh-huh. So when I was first organizing the tour, the expedition, I did consider doing it supported. I did look into it.
Which would mean having a car, someone else with you, with a car to carry your stuff, etc. So by self-supported, we mean completely alone.
Exactly.
With all of your gear with you on the road. Yeah. Just to be clear for you guys listening. So
and to elaborate on that, what we did was we had jogging strollers. Mm-hmm. So normally you would have a baby inside, and it's more than your usual pram in that it's purposely built for running with the child inside. So instead of the child, we had everything that we needed to survive, basically. So we had tents, sleeping bags, clothes, and food. So we could literally go anywhere between 3 and 5 days without needing to find a store or a source of food.
Yeah.
And we could camp wild, which we did a number of times because you're running, you're not necessarily going to get to the next town each day.
Yeah.
So that was part of the plan. And again, that's added an edge to it.
Yeah.
Not necessarily knowing where you're going to sleep that day, but for me that was fantastic. Like, it didn't matter.
Oh my
gosh.
gosh.
Let's just go and see what happens. And that element really appeals to me. And this route was perfect for that because it's safe. There's very little human traffic. It's beautiful. You could camp next to rivers.
Yeah.
It was just fantastic. Yeah. So the element of just going and working things out is one of my preferences. Is to almost just bash it through and work it out.
Yeah.
So,
I share that sentiment for that trip because I don't, and I think my listeners probably know this about me, I don't normally do that really anymore. I like to know where I'm sleeping at night, and usually that's because I don't want to be stuck in a hostel dorm. It matters where I sleep because I'm a light sleeper, and I'm just kind of, I'm over that part of the backpacking scene and whatever. Yeah. I've been doing this for a long time, but on that specific trip, on that road, we didn't have plans, not a single day, and we did the same thing. We wild camped a lot, so pretty much all we did. And that's the nature of that road. That's just what you do. You go until you see something that interests you and you check it out and you kind of take your time and you have a direction in mind and you get there.
Don't you think it's like one massive national park? And within that park, you're allowed to almost do what you want. So as you said, if you want to camp here tonight, you can.
Yeah.
And you're constantly surrounded by amazing beauty and landscapes.
And hanging glaciers and just unreal sights. Yeah,
we had a project page on Facebook, and one of my descriptions was that, every day is just a changing landscape, but constantly beautiful.
Yeah.
So
and long. I mean, there were so many national parks in there. So many different parks along the way and things to see and detours to take. That's one thing that you couldn't really do.
Yeah, it was the one disadvantage. We kind of weren't on holiday because we had, I guess, an objective.
Right.
We were limited by, so Roger, the friend who joined me, he had a subsequent holiday which he needed to finish the expedition before.
Okay.
So we did have a fixed window. It was more than enough time, and towards the back end, when we knew that we had enough time to finish, we did add in 1 or 2 days. But we did a few must-dos. So we did the Cerro Castilla hike.
Okay, good.
We did the Marble Caves in Puerto Tranquillo. We took the diversion to Tortel. Yeah. So that was pretty cool. But yes, there were times where I was like, oh, we should be climbing that, or we should be going to see that, or it'd be nice to stay here for a few more days. But we had an objective. It wasn't a complete holiday. It was an adventure with an objective.
Right.
So we set out to achieve something, I guess.
And you did it.
Yeah, it was fantastic finishing. I don't think I've started telling people that I wouldn't have started it if I didn't think I could finish it. So, not to say that not finishing it wasn't an option, but I think I never doubted that we wouldn't do it. And to be honest, we did it over a period of 6 weeks, which it's quite a lot of time. I don't think we were pushed to our limits too many times in terms of doing distance in a day or really being tested by the elements. We had a handful of days that will be remembered for a very long time.
That does not surprise me.
Yeah.
This Patagonia weather, man.
Yeah, so we were very lucky. We've, I read a lot about the wind and the rain and stuff, but I think we had 5 miserable days out of 6 weeks.
Wow, that's very unbelievable.
Yeah. And if we consider we were camping most times, we were very lucky. I think we had to pack up our tents in rain twice.
That's it?
So.
Wow, that's really surprising.
Yeah.
I mean, the weather can be
lucky.
crazy
We were lucky.
down here. So did you start in Puerto Montt?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we started at the pier in Puerto Montt where Route 7 starts.
Okay. So you went and took the first ferry and everything?
Yeah. So the only section we didn't do was, I think it's past Bonapiran.
Yeah.
The road actually continues, but it's a dead end. You catch the ferry from about 30 kilometers before the road dead ends, but it didn't seem like there was any point going down that road.
Oh.
Yeah, do you follow?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the road actually continues past.
But that doesn't really matter then. Yeah. No.
We'll come right back to that. Let's take a moment now to thank our wonderful show sponsors. Osprey is the market leader in technical outdoor, travel, and everyday packs. And I've personally used Osprey packs since 2015. My favorites are the Fairview Trek 50 for multi-day hikes, the Cirrus 24 for day hikes, the Transporter Rolling Duffel 60, which is my trusty check luggage for faraway adventures, and of course, the countless packing cubes I use to organize everything that goes in them. We are proud to support each other on the podcast and beyond. We love getting outside, and we want to see more people outdoors. So find out more and join us at osprey.com.
No, so, we otherwise...
you went all the way down, and you ended in Via O'Higgins then.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you would have continued by foot into Argentina, no? From there? Or how did you do it?
So the expedition ended at the end of the Carretera Austral, which was about 7 kilometers past.
Okay.
That one was slightly different because to get the ferry out of Villa O'Higgins or Villa O'Higgins, you had to go past the town. But I guess the ceremonial finish was as we came into Villa O'Higgins, and then we did go to the very end, kind of for the photos and the...
Of course.
Yeah, there's a board at the very end.
Okay. I didn't make it there, as you know. We didn't go all the way down there because it's another ferry, and for us, we didn't have enough time.
I mean, you saw a lot.
Yeah.
I would say that last stretch was special. It had a slight edge to it.
Yeah. I can imagine.
Which the rest of the route didn't. So that was pretty cool. There was quite a big pass that had some sketchy parts to it, and especially when the weather was not,
Well, it's also different because we were in a car, and you can't keep going from Via O'Higgins. You have to turn around and backtrack, and for us, it would have been a couple 100 kilometers or more.
Yeah,
I can't even remember. A couple days.
Did you have to come back via Cochrane?
Yeah, we would have had to go
from Cochrane to O'Higgins is 240.
Right, okay. So the first pass that's open to vehicles is north of Cochrane in Parque Patagonia, like even a little bit more north. And so it would have been kind of a haul for us, which is why we only went to Tortel, which is still down there, but yeah. So then when you got down there, how did you go? Is that when you did the Huemul circuit or no?
Well, so yes, from O'Higgins, so we finished, that was the end of the expedition. And so Roger from O'Higgins made his way back to Puerto Montt via buses and a plane to go back home and onto his next holiday in the Seychelles. So
vacation time.
Yeah. And then I met a friend and her cousin in O'Higgins, and the three of us then made the crossing, which
by foot.
Which requires you get a ferry
Okay.
or across a lake. And then I think it's about a 25-kilometer trek, basically. The first part's quite easy because it's on a dirt road. And then the last, I think it's 5 or 7 kilometers, it's a single trail, which is fine if you're walking just with a backpack, because it's like hiking. I still had
a stroller.
Harriet the Chariot.
Harriet the Chariot.
Yeah. So that was actually Harriet's most testing part of the whole trip because she was going through rivers, through muddy sections, like getting bashed around quite badly. But it was pretty cool. It's a very nice hike that finishes at another lake, now on the Argentinian side.
Yeah.
And then you get another ferry, or you can walk it. We got the ferry because I had the stroller. Another ferry across the lake, and then you get a bus into El Chaltén.
That's so crazy. How long did that take you?
We did it in a day, the whole thing, but we did get the very first ferry out of O'Higgins, and then we caught the last ferry into, the one that goes close to El Chaltén.
We had to drive 500 miles around to get to Chaltén. Yeah. And I think we were there. I was just ahead of you most of the way on this. You were ahead of us most of the way.
I think from when we first met in Cochrane, I think you then...
That's when we caught up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then apart from your backtrack, I think after that you were then ahead. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've been seeing your posts on Instagram and I'm like, I'm there.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It was so chance that we ended up meeting in Cochrane because, there's no cell service. There's no cell service. There's no Wi-Fi. There's just nothing for being connected on that whole road. And suddenly a text comes in and you're saying you're in the same town as me and we're literally about to leave in half an hour.
That was very lucky.
Because we had been out wild camping, and so I was just passing through service. And this was really cool to get to actually cross paths with you. And then...
What you didn't get to do was actually push the stroller.
I didn't even see the stroller.
No, I've just packed it up today as well.
So tell us how you packed the stroller. What was...
You mean during the run?
Yeah, for your expedition.
So as I mentioned earlier, we had to be self-sufficient. So tent, basically it was the same approach as if you're going for a multi-day hike in the mountains. Yeah. So tent, sleeping bag, all your cooking equipment, so your camping cooking equipment, clothing. So we kept it quite light. So only a few running shirts, a few socks. Those probably we had the most of. We had multiple pairs of shoes because 1,200 kilometers is a bit much, was too much for one pair.
Yeah.
Generally, a pair of shoes can last between 500 and 800 kilometers. So we had multiple pairs of shoes.
Also, if they get wet, then you want...
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, actually running in wet shoes is the quickest way to dry them.
That's
true.
That
wasn't an issue. Then spare tubes, spare tires, a few mechanical things, so tool sets in case anything came loose or came off. And then food. Mm-hmm. So we would stock up whenever we got to a town or a village. And we'd estimate how long it would take us to the next town or village. So we would eat a lot of pasta.
Yeah, we ate a lot of pasta.
Light and easy to cook. Because the towns were so small and they didn't have the greatest selection of foods and especially fresh stuff, we just ate whatever we could find. Yeah. So we ate a lot of junk food. Yeah. But our bodies were craving it. So it was, not that we were watching our weight, but so we ate a lot of biscuits, cookies, brownies, sweets, crisps. Crisps are quite high, and we started getting quite specific about which foods had the highest calorie count. Because, that's what we wanted. Right. Yeah. So crisps are actually quite high. We learned.
Eat all the junk food and just run it off every day.
Yeah, so it was cool. Also going into a store in a foreign country, and just trying to work out what things are, or what's the words in Spanish.
Yeah, because you don't speak Spanish, right?
No, try not to have regrets, but it's the only regret I have for the trip is that I didn't learn Spanish. Because
6 weeks, don't be too hard on yourself.
No, I mean, like before, I wanted to arrive being able to converse, because I'm very interested in people's stories.
Yeah.
And there were not a few, there were a number of interesting people we met along the way that I was able to have a basic conversation with them, but left feeling that, damn, I really wanted to hear more about them. So, yeah. But, we got by with the basics.
What do you think you spent, not counting plane tickets, on this trip? Maybe preparing like gear, and then what you actually spent on the road, you're just really paying for money, right? Or for food.
For food, yeah. I think gear-wise, so let's exclude all the camping stuff. I think that people are quite familiar with, buying a tent, maybe...
backpacking gear, lightweight.
Exactly, yeah. So we had all of that except the actual backpack. We didn't need, obviously, the backpack.
Right, you had a stroller.
We had a stroller. So, in Rand terms, that was probably 5,000 Rand. So we're talking about $500 US, maybe. The most expensive thing was the stroller. So it's a brand called Thule.
Thule, yeah.
Thule. Yeah, it's from Sweden. And I think because it's imported to South Africa, and the South African currency is quite weak against a lot of the other currencies in the world, that was the most expensive. But fortunately, I had a contact at a distributor, and they basically set me up at half price. But that was about
in South Africa. So you took care of all that there.
Yeah.
And then you didn't have a problem shipping the stroller.
I didn't have a problem, but it cost me $100.
$100 on the plane.
Yeah. So the Chariot comes in a box, in quite a big box. It's like a bike box.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's comparable to that. So the airline I flew with, I'd seen this beforehand, so I was prepared. And they charged $100 to move it across, which was it was okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So, I managed to get the Chariot gear, all of that, for about $1,000, roughly, which is about half price of what it retails.
Okay.
So I was quite grateful for that. Yeah, and then along the road, we would spend, I would say, between 5,000 and 10,000 pesos a day. 5
and 10, that's pretty good. That's like less than $20.
I think so, yeah. Yeah, because camping would be 5,000 generally.
Oh, so you paid for the campground sometimes? Yeah.
But then there were days where we wild camped, so that was obviously free.
Yeah.
And then I think food was anywhere between 2,000 and 10,000 pesos a day, depending if we ate in a town or made our own. So
it's a really cheap trip, really.
Yeah.
All said and done.
Yeah, once you're here, I would say it's very cheap.
Do you have any... I'm struggling to think of who else might be crazy enough to do this, but I guess not just for this specific route, but do you have any tips for anyone who might consider doing a running expedition, traveling like this?
Yeah, maybe before I get into that, the concept of how I did it, so pushing a stroller, was not my idea. There are a few people out there who have done it. There's a guy called Dave Chamberlain. He's also South African. He's actually in the middle of something called the Hug Run. He's running around the world.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Basically, he's trying to promote getting the most out of life.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think one of his strap lines is he's searching for the perfect hug. So, I'd heard about him through a friend and looked him up, and he's done a few projects like the one I've just done. He actually ran the length of Argentina.
Oh, wow.
I think that was his first project. He did something back home. He ran across Canada. And now he's doing this, I think it's a 6-year project.
Wow.
So that's where I got the idea of the stroller. It is, in terms of tips for doing something similar, it is, I would say, a very good way of transporting your stuff if you are wanting to do something by foot. Because you're pushing it once you're actually pushing the stroller, it's actually, once you've got momentum on the wheels, it's actually easy. On a flat road, you're not having to put in a lot of effort. The difficulty came with the uphills and with the dirt road.
Oh my gosh, I was going to say, those roads were not flat.
Yeah, I mean...
You must have struggled. I was thinking about you on those roads. I would not want to be pushing a stroller. Yeah. I would think that sometimes, So
there were, how many undulations? There was just like hill after hill after hill. So we would walk the uphills because it's, you're pushing about 40 kilograms, between 30 and 40 kilograms, depending on how much food you've got. So to run up the hill, you would burn out way too quickly. So we would walk the uphills. The dirt roads, even if they were flat, if they were too corrugated, is that what you call them? Ripples.
You guys understand what we're saying. The washboard. That's what we call it.
If it was too rough, you actually couldn't run it because the stroller would just bounce almost out of sequence to the road. If that makes sense. You've got this stroller that's bouncing around and you're trying to find a rhythm as well. There were some sections that we actually just had to walk. Also where if the gravel was too thick, it wasn't packed tightly.
Right, kind of sinking.
Yeah, you'd be sinking and shifting around.
That sounds like so much work.
It was at times, but as hard work as it was, we were constantly surrounded by beautiful surroundings. So it was, it was difficult to get grumpy. It was easy to get grumpy, but it was.
But then you just look up.
Yeah. So. I think for anyone wanting to do something similar, my first bit of advice, which is starting to apply through a lot of things in life, is just do it. Just get out there and do it. Even if you're completely unprepared, you're going to learn. You might fail a few times, but that's how you're going to learn. Yeah. So number one is just go and do it.
We've never heard that on this show before.
And it's not
recurring theme.
It's not an original phrase either, but it's very appropriate.
Yeah.
It's incredibly appropriate.
Just try it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you do need a certain level of preparedness. You want to have your camping gear. You want to be rain resistant.
Especially in Patagonia.
Exactly. Yeah, and there's not that much to it. It's a pretty basic form of travel. It's a pretty basic activity. You might want to document it because it's such a wonderful place. So I didn't do nearly as much as I wanted to. That was just a byproduct of, I guess, actually running. So when you're in a rhythm, you don't want to keep stopping to take photos or do videos and set up cameras. So if I do something like this again, I'll try. I'll probably do it supported, so that I've got someone who can do more documenting. Because I'd like to, make short videos about the adventures that people can use for inspiration or to prepare for their own thing.
It's hard to do when you're running and pushing a stroller.
Yes, that was impossible. I got it's called a GoPro Karma grip. So it's a selfie stick. Well, it's like a selfie stick with a gimbal on the top. So
to stabilize?
Yeah.
It's like
a So you could run with this thing in your hand and the shot would be stable. But more than just a stabilizer, more than just a shaking stabilizer, you could do this with your arm and the shot would stay. So I was a bit over geared in that respect. Didn't end up using it that much.
But you didn't know that though.
So I know for next time.
Yeah. So the next question is then, Are you thinking about doing another one?
Absolutely, yeah. So we hadn't done 400 kilometers when I thought of the next or another project. And then closer to the end, I came up with a series of projects that are linked. Perhaps, I don't know if I want to say it yet because it's still very early.
You don't have to.
But I'll let you know.
Okay.
When I'm launching phase 2. I mean, I mentioned to you, I have thought about rerunning the Carretera Austral in a supported format, just to. I don't necessarily want to race it, but when we were going along, I did think, I wonder how quickly one could do this.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So that is something that's an option.
Yeah.
I might look at running it from a supported perspective. Yeah, and then there's so much to do out there. And the obvious thing to say is, well, run across from here to here. And as soon as you say that, you've got, 180 plus countries in the world. So you could just say, well, I'm going to run across A, B, and C.
That's true.
The States is a bit big, but
people have done it though.
Yes, I think there's a race every now and then.
Probably.
They run east to west or vice versa.
So is there a way that we can keep up with you if you do want to do that?
I think what will happen is the Facebook project page that I had set up for what I call Project Patagonia. Will be expanded.
Okay.
Will evolve to incorporate these other projects. So if someone wants to have a look at the photos and videos that from this expedition, they can look up Project Patagonia, one word, on Facebook.
We'll put the link on the show notes page. That way, if it changes too, we can update it so that people can find you. So, anything else you want to add?
No, I don't think so. I mean, in my own writing on the Facebook page and otherwise, I've really tried to encourage people to come to Patagonia. Specifically the Carretera Austral for everything we've already discussed. And secondly, to try and encourage people to get out there. Yeah. And to get out of their comfort zone.
Absolutely.
I think the Carretera Austral is a perfect place to do that because it's safe, it's beautiful. There are no wild animals that are going to munch you in the night.
Right.
It's
a bonus. Good point.
I think certainly this project as well is I'm hoping that it'll be a stepping stone or even a launch pad for other projects like this. Again, based on the premise just to get out there and explore. Do something different. Exactly. Yeah. Good for you. Yeah, thank you. I'm proud of you. I'm super impressed. I mean, after seeing what you did. You join one of the next time. Yeah, I know. I would love to. I really, really would. Maybe I'll aspire to that one day. All right, well, cool. We'll have to catch up with you if you do this again in the future. Definitely. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Cheers. We haven't even done this yet, but there, you guys can hear that. We're in a little cafe in Puerto Natales in southern Chile, and we basically made it all the way through without any extra people around until now, so it's time to go. Thank you so much, Mike. We'll keep up with you, and we'll talk to you soon, okay? Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, how's that for alternative modes of transportation? Do you think you could do a running expedition? I actually think that maybe one day I could. I am pretty intrigued, at least. So thanks again to Mike for sharing his story with us and inspiring some of us to think outside the box on that one. Like I mentioned, you can find notes and links for everything that we talked about in this episode on the show notes page at thebudgetmindedtraveler.com/92, as well as a link to Mike's current running project. Once again, a shout out to our sponsor, biketours.com. I've had 2 incredible trips with them so far, and I'm excited for more. They've introduced me to a world of cycle touring that I had never tried before, and now I'm a believer. If you enjoy active travel, I encourage you to check out their website and give bike touring a shot. Biketours.com makes it easy to choose and book a tour. They've taken care of all the logistics, so all you have to do is say yes and show up. You can go straight to biketours.com to view tours, or go to travelingjackie.com/bike tours to learn more about my personal experiences cycling with them. Thanks for tuning in today. I hope that it opened your mind to more possibilities of how you might be able to see a new place. And on that note, if you like water, you definitely don't want to miss the next episode. Until then, safe travels. See you guys right back here soon.